I'd like to start off this video by revisiting Pikmin 2 for a moment. I recently had a conversation with someone about Pikmin 2 that I found to be interesting and particularly relevant to my opinions on Pikmin 3. I was going through all the things that I didn't like about Pikmin 2 that I mentioned in my previous video, like the caves, the focus on action over strategy, and the fact that they didn't expand on the world and environments by making the maps bigger. The person I was speaking with responded with something eye-opening though, which was that every single thing that I didn't like about the game, they actually loved. They didn't see the caves as bothersome and tedious, but rather roguelike dungeon crawlers that enhance the experience by offering something new. They didn't see the focus on action over strategy as a focus on action at all, but rather just a way of speeding the pace at which you face new challenges. And the fact that they didn't make the maps bigger wasn't really an issue at all, because as previously mentioned, they didn't mind the caves, which more than made up for it. I let all that sit with me for a bit, and I came to a bit of a realization. While writing out what I thought of Pikmin 2 for my video, I took a bit of a knee-jerk attitude to the game and only ever bothered to write down my initial opinions, never considering any alternative views. This isn't to say that every video on every game, movie, TV show, book, or whatever else should always keep other people's opinions in mind, but what I was going for with Pikmin 2 wasn't a review. I was trying to look at what the developers had in mind and whether or not they were successful in making that vision a reality. If they were, how did they do it? If they weren't, what happened? I think, keeping this and the conversation I had in mind, I may have rushed to judge Pikmin 2 on its differences from the first game. I'm not going to trick myself into thinking that I actually enjoyed my time with the game, but I do think that I should have spent more time carefully thinking about what the game was going for and whether there was anything to appreciate in that. So how does this relate to Pikmin 3? It relates because Pikmin 3 is the ultimate blend of its two predecessors, and I enjoyed it. And it felt a bit off to say that I appreciated something that took from the core identity of Pikmin 2, while saying that I didn't actually appreciate Pikmin 2 itself. Like I've said before, I have already played Pikmin 3, but I really didn't remember anything about it going into it this time, so it was essentially a clean slate. Coming right off of Pikmin 1 and 2, I only wanted Pikmin 3 to be a return to form. I wanted the strategy elements of Pikmin 1 back and to be expanded on, and any bit of Pikmin 2 gone. But after my bit of reflection, I started to wonder what a proper mix of the two would be like. Blending the pure strategy and rushed feeling that Pikmin 1 provides with the focus on quick thinking and enemy slaying that Pikmin 2 showcased could result in a really interesting game, and I'm happy to say that it did. Pikmin 3 is exactly that. A mix of almost everything that most people enjoyed from the two games that came before it. I loved playing Pikmin 3 this time around, more than the first time I'd even say. The success of Pikmin 3 is something that I credit to 5 different components of the game that all focus on different aspects of the experience, but at the same time work together to create a strong final product. Those 5 components are story, resource management, time management, puzzle solving, and combat. In this video, I'll be going over each of the 5 parts of the game that I listed and explaining how I believe they work to create the simplistic yet innovative experience that I found Pikmin 3 to be. Let's begin with story. When I say that the story of Pikmin 3 is one of the things that makes it a good game, I don't mean it in the way that you may think I do. Pikmin 3 tells the story of not Olimar and Louie, but 3 new crew members from a different planet named Charlie, Brittany, and Elf. The 3 head to the Pikmin's planet, PNF 404, to find fruit for the people on their planet who have depleted all their resources and have nothing to eat anymore. Of course, because this is a Pikmin game, the 3 crash land on the planet, getting separated in the process and losing the most important part of their ship, the Cosmic Drive Key. Without it, they can't get home. Your job is to not only find the Cosmic Drive Key and leave the planet, but also to gather enough fruit while on the planet to bring home for your people. The story isn't as static as previous Pikmin games though. Once you complete the first task of finding Brittany and Charlie, you move on to finding the Cosmic Drive Key, which it turns out Louie, who is also stranded on the planet, happens to have. You find Louie in an unconscious state, but after taking him back to your ship, he flees, leading to having to find him again. Once you do, he tells you where the Cosmic Drive Key actually is, which is with Olimar. The game finishes off with you finding Olimar and the Cosmic Drive Key and hightailing it off the planet to go home. But what I find special about the story isn't the character interactions, or really anything that makes a story well written. Not to take that for granted, but it's just not what I want to focus on. What I find special about the story in this game is how it affects gameplay. Similar to Pikmin 1 and 2, when you head to the planet, you're going there with one specific goal in mind, which is to gather fruit. Once you're separated from your crew, however, you then have 2 goals. One is to gather fruit, and the other is to find your friends. Shortly after, you run into Brittany, the first of your friends that you rescue. Already this changes how you play the game, because with control over Brittany and Elf, you can now multitask and manage your units in a way that allows for more efficient fruit gathering. You then find Charlie, and then it's back to just focusing on fruit and the Cosmic Drive Key. With Alf, Brittany, and Charlie reunited, you can control any of the three at any time you want, allowing for even more opportunities to flex your micromanagement and party leading skills. At this point, things go a bit slower, with the focus shifting to finding Louie, who you believe has the key. There is still the issue of fruit, of course, but at this point I had built a decent enough buffer that I could rely on, so that I didn't have to find fruit every day, or even longer. When you do find Louie though, he escapes the next day with all of your fruit. Every last jar containing the only thing keeping you alive, gone. This is another, and I would argue the best example of the game using story to change up how you play. I had built a buffer of 26 days of fruit, but all of it was just gone. I knew I had to get Louie back, but I couldn't the first day after his escape because I just didn't have the time to do that and gather enough fruit to live off of. So I built up a good enough backlog of fruit, got Louie, and restored my collection. Then, like I said, you head off to find Olimar and the game ends once you do. Each and every event that takes place in the story is a carefully crafted obstacle that tests your skill as a Pikmin player. Even something as simple as reuniting all 3 crew members adds so much to the game because it raises the skill ceiling tremendously, allowing you to perform more functions with your team and complete the game even faster. This isn't mandatory though, as you can just choose to venture as one unit and take a longer time if you want. Then there are the bigger bumps in the road, like Louie stealing your fruit, which takes you completely by surprise, by the way, and has you running around lost, needing to find fruit before the day is over. The feelings of panic and confusion don't come from the cutscene of Louie escaping, but the repercussions that you, as a player, need to bear. This brings me to the second thing that makes this game special, the way resource management is handled. Each challenge thrown at you in Pikmin 3 tests your resource management skills, resource referring to both Pikmin count and fruit. From Louie stealing all of your fruit and having to find more in 15 minutes, to Alf and Brittany being placed on separate sides of the map when they're split up the second time. At one point in the game, Brittany and Alf are placed on different sides of the map, unable to reach each other, with Brittany in control of yellow Pikmin and Alf in control of red and rock Pikmin. You need to build a bridge in between the two to get them back together, so you keep trading Pikmin with each other back and forth. Yellow to Alf, rock to Brittany, red back to Alf, figuring out how many Pikmin you need on both sides to build the bridge to get Brittany back. And this is only an example that is present due to story purposes. Even on the days in between those major plot events, you need to manage your Pikmin and party leaders efficiently enough so that you can collect the fruit you need, complete the task at hand, or both at the same time. You don't need to do both at the same time, and you can totally tackle each issue as one huge party, but if you want to split people up, the game gives you the tools necessary to do so. The biggest of those tools is the Go Here function. With the gamepad, at any moment during the day, you can scroll around on the map and command the selected party to head over to a part of the map that you've already explored. They'll then automatically walk to that location while you perform other tasks with the other parties. The ability to send a party leader and their Pikmin to a specific location while doing other stuff with other party leaders is a godsend. The skill ceiling increase I mentioned earlier is further built upon with this feature. One of the issues I had with Pikmin 2, but didn't really mention because I couldn't find the proper moment to do so in the video, was that the multitasking was always limited because of the fact that Louie and Olimar had to always be controlled, otherwise they'd stand around doing nothing. This is unlike most mainstream RTS games where you can just, at the very least, command a unit to move somewhere while you manage your other characters. Further compounding the issue of limited multitasking was that when Olimar entered a cave, Louie had to enter as well, and vice versa. There was no way to truly split up the two parties and send them off to different parts of the map. This was most likely done so that you couldn't exploit the fact that time didn't progress in the caves and the party member on the surface didn't have infinite time on their hands, but I think it's fair to say it contributed to me not enjoying the game still. Pikmin 3 remedies both of these problems though by adding in the Go Here function, and it makes things all the better. In addition to this, they compromised by removing the caves but making the maps much larger and leaving in more to uncover in the world. So instead of having to drag all 3 party members into a cave, you can send one to scout an area that's on the complete opposite side of this huge map, and then send them back to the rocket, all while your second party gets some fruit and defeats some enemies. But your resources are not the only things that you need to control and manage in Pikmin 3. This is a Pikmin game after all, so with it comes the need for time management skills. I don't have anything very new to say about the time limit because I pretty much covered how I felt about it in the Pikmin 1 video, but I do want to go over how it's handled in Pikmin 3 just briefly. The time limit in this game takes from the strict form that it took in Pikmin 1 and from its lack of presence in Pikmin 2. Like Pikmin 2, there's no set amount of days that the game has to take place during. However, that doesn't mean that you're left to waste as much time as you want. How much time you have left completely depends on skill now. If you can manage your time efficiently and collect all the fruit you need to last you a long time, then you can continuously maintain a buffer that will secure you enough time for the rest of the game. For instance, like I said earlier, I was able to maintain a 26-day buffer because of the heavy focus I placed on collecting fruit early in the game. Some people have surely been able to build higher buffers than that, and others probably don't mind keeping just enough fruit for them to survive so that they can power through the story and speedrun the game. The developers taking a different approach to the time limit this time around does wonders for the game because it makes the adventure more personalized. You're not confined to having to get at least one ship part a day, but you're also put on at least somewhat of a clock, forcing you to pick up the pace at times. Of course, it could be argued that Pikmin 2's lack of a time limit made the adventure personalized as well, but as I stated in my Pikmin 1 video, one of the things that made the original game so charming was that you need to constantly think ahead. In my opinion, Pikmin just isn't the same when you can waltz around taking your time doing whatever you want. There needs to be at least some sense of urgency. Urgency can be found through things other than the time limit though, like the puzzle solving and combat. Tackling them in that respective order, the puzzle solving in this game is kicked up a notch from Pikmin 1 and 2. Pikmin 3 features a lot of different puzzles that require you to maximize your use of splitting up the crew members, splitting up different types of Pikmin, counting how many Pikmin you'll bring on your trek from the rocket, and accounting for how many you could potentially lose along the way. The best example I can think of to showcase all of this is the final level of the game. You control a minimum of 2 parties, one with Brittany leading 5 Pikmin carrying Olimar to safety, and the other with Charlie and Alf who have the rest of your Pikmin and are trying to clear a route for Brittany in time. In time, that is, to escape the giant oozing monster chasing after you to get Olimar back. So the whole time I was frantically switching between Brittany and Charlie, trying to evade the monster with one and clearing a path with the other. And clearing a path isn't just taking down walls, no. It's finding the pieces to build a bridge with, building that bridge, pushing platforms out of the way so that Brittany can have an easier time getting to the second party, completing electrical circuits with yellow Pikmin, using the right Pikmin to get the bridge pieces over the water in time. So much thought goes into all of these puzzles, and it all takes place in 15 minutes, which may sound like a lot of time, but it really doesn't feel like it in the moment. This all links back to what I mentioned earlier about the sense of urgency. You're on a clock. Not just the clock that's built into the game, but you also have the need to escape this giant beast running after you while fulfilling the requirements you need to escape. In terms of combat, Pikmin 3 places a much greater emphasis on it than there was in the first and second game, or at least it feels that way. With the introduction of new Pikmin, every boss tests your ability and quick thinking skills in terms of which Pikmin you should use, when to use them, and which Pikmin don't need to even be brought into the fight at all. Of course, it'd only be fitting for me to go back to the final stage of the game and talk about the final boss as the ultimate example of all this, and how the combat also brings urgency into the fold. The final boss begins with its first phase, where all you need to do is hurl Pikmin at it and destroy its outer layer by having them chip away at it, then destroy the pieces that fall onto the ground before the boss reabsorbs all of them. Do that enough times and it'll continue to attack you and your Pikmin, now while also throwing out water bubbles, or glass cubes, which you need to use blue Pikmin and rock Pikmin in that respective order to destroy. There's an attack for each of the Pikmin to be used during, and it's completely random so you never know what's coming next. Then, as if that weren't enough, the boss will start throwing out 3 of those attacks at a time, each different than the other, which you need to destroy in a small window of time, by the way. So you'll throw your red Pikmin at the fire, yellow into the electric orb, and rock at the glass cube, quickly switching between the Pikmin types and making sure your aim is accurate enough for them not to be caught in other attacks. All of this, by the way, while still moving around to avoid the boss eating up the Pikmin that you're not throwing at its attacks. Once you finally master this phase of the boss, all that's left is just killing its final form by attacking it with brute force, the most satisfying way to end your journey. And like with the puzzle portion of the final level, there's a sense of urgency. If you take too long, the boss starts regenerating its health and you need to start the whole phase over. And to be clear, the final stage and boss are not the only moments in the game that exhibit excellent puzzle solving and combat opportunities. There are countless bosses, mini-bosses, and puzzles in the rest of the maps for you to have the same experience with, albeit less intense obviously compared to that of the final zone. Now, hopefully by this point I've done a good job of explaining my point so that you understand how these 5 parts of the game work together to make one great product. The events in the story open up different opportunities for the game to test your resource and time management skills, consisting of either puzzles or combat scenarios. Looked at separately, admittedly it can be a bit messy, but when it's all put together in the graceful way that the developers behind Pikmin 3 did it, it creates a truly unique and, at times, thrilling experience. Forgive me if this whole video came off as a bit messy, with the constant transitioning from one point to the other. I've written more drafts of this script than I can remember, to be honest, and with each one before this one, I had this sense of unease that my points were scrambled all over the place. I think this is a draft that I'm happy with, however, and I hope that you feel the same way too. If not, please do let me know. I'm constantly looking for ways to better myself, and I figure there's no better way to do that than receiving feedback directly from those watching. Whether it's on Twitter or as a YouTube comment, please do let me know how I did in this one, because it'll most likely shape how I handle videos similar to this in the future. So, what's next? With nothing announced about Pikmin 4 at E3, I could just wait for that to come to fruition, but in the meantime I'll be doing other stuff. I do have one project planned, but it's a bit much and really ambitious, so I'm still thinking about it, but between this series and the next, I'll try to work on a few one-offs to produce so that it's not just one long hiatus. All that said, it was really nice to work on a series that I, for the most part, enjoyed, especially coming off of the Jack series. I'm still trying to work out all the kinks in my writing, so thanks for those who have stuck around with me so far, and I'm looking forward to providing you more content in the future. Until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.